25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. How many times have you had somebody say to you, you should eat this, don't eat that, and this and that, and you say, you know, my grandmother lived to be 99, and she ate all the stuff you're telling me not to eat. We have such a different world now than our grandparents and great-grandparents lived in, and we have a better understanding also of the relationship that food has with our bodies. And you know, ultimately, we do live longer than even at the beginning of in 1900. I think the expected life span in 1900, I think, was 40.
I think so, yeah.
At that time. And even though it became much later for those who were born in 1900. On the phone is a man who has written a book that you will want to know about. And you're also going to be happy. Don't call right now. But you're going to be happy to know that he sent us 3 of them.
Yes, he did.
So at the end of the interview, I'll give away all 3 of these books. The book is called How Not to Die. Discover the foods scientifically proven to prevent and reverse disease. We are all ears with this topic. I will give you a brief biography of our guest, Dr. Michael Greger. He's a physician, the director of public health and animal agriculture at the Humane Society of the United States. He's a speaker on nutrition, food safety, and public health issues. He runs the website nutritionfacts.org, so you can go there right now and look him up if you want to while you're listening. And let's begin that conversation. How Not to Die. Dr. Michael Greger, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. So glad to be here.
Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I am on my treadmill in Washington, D.C.
On a treadmill?
Wow, nice.
Doesn't sound like you're on a treadmill.
It's a very quiet treadmill. Yes, I work on a treadmill desk.
Oh, you do? Oh, wow, that's awesome. So this is a very, very complete book. I mean, this is a big book. You must have been working on this a long time. What did you study things that you like? How do you study whether kale works, and how do you study whether? Because you hear all these things. What's one? Kale and fish oil, and what's some of the other things we hear? Beets and yeah. How do you study this?
Antioxidants.
Yeah.
So it used to be, the best studies we have were kind of population studies, where you'd look and you'd see, well, where are the healthiest populations, the longest-lived populations on the planet? Okay, and what do they eat? How do they live? And then you could do cohort studies where you take a population, you follow them very closely and their diets over years, see what kind of diseases they get, and see if you can kind of correlate things. But now... We have interventional studies where you actually take people, randomize people into 2 groups, give half the group extra broccoli, half not, and actually see the effects. And so then it's not just, well, yeah, broccoli eaters may live longer, but maybe it's because they also don't smoke. But in these interventional trials, we can cut out all these other factors and just test the effects of diet on disease.
Okay, let me ask you this. And this, I just want to ask you this because every once in a while we'll hear an infomercial, and it'll ask us to buy a powder or a pill, and it'll say the amount of ingredients in this pill is equal to, and this is just an example, a pickup truck full of green tea.
Yeah.
And I will say, well, why would I need a pickup truck full of green tea? Because usually they'll say green tea is why Japanese people are healthier or something. Yeah. Well, they're not drinking a pickup truck full. They're drinking whatever they drink.
Exactly.
Right?
Right, so that is a very reductionist way of thinking that there's some kind of active ingredient. If we could just identify what the active ingredient in these various plant foods, then we could put it in a pill, because you can't make billions on broccoli. You can make a lot of money selling pills and supplements. And so that's why you see, unfortunately, this kind. And look, and the processed food industry loves this kind of. Look, they can put on their crappy breakfast cereal. They can put now with vitamin D, or now with fiber, or now with whole grains, whichever nutrient du jour, right? But that doesn't make it healthy. But instead of talking about nutrients, we need to talk about food. That's what people eat.
And that was one of the examples you gave in the book about acai berries. It went everything from health food stores to Anheuser-Busch beer.
Right.
Yeah, that was funny.
So the food industry, they would be happy to place any diet fad we want. We want gluten-free, they'll give us gluten-free junk food. We want to eat low-fat, they'll give us low-fat junk food. They'll sell us junk in any, flavor or color that we wanted. But we really have to step back, and it's not about these individual components. So, for example, the classic story was that of beta-carotene. If you measure the amount of beta-carotene in people's bloodstream, it's actually a very good indicator of health and longevity. And so they put people on beta-carotene pills, and it turns out they actually had higher cancer rates compared to placebo. And that's because the beta-carotene was just a marker in the blood for healthy eating. What's beta-carotene found? Dark green leafy vegetables and sweet potatoes, really healthy foods. So it was just a marker of healthy eating. It wasn't the component itself. In fact, when you isolated it into a pill, it actually caused more problems than it helped.
I want the listeners to know that in the book you actually give advice on what foods to perhaps eat or to avoid for certain conditions. And I know we're never going to be able to cover everything in the book. For the listeners, the book is, let me just give you, I'll open up to the back page, 500-something pages long, okay? It's a very, very comprehensive book. And so just real thumbnail sketch, if you would. My notes tell me that you give ideas for high blood pressure, liver disease, coffee for liver disease. Is that true?
Well, yeah. So in my chapters on liver disease, depression, and Parkinson's, I talk about the benefits of coffee for the liver, mind, brain. Coffee drinkers do seem to live longer and have lower cancer rates overall, but coffee can worsen acid reflux disease, bone loss, glaucoma, urinary incontinence. Bottom line, I don't recommend drinking coffee, but mainly because it's just every cup of coffee is a lost opportunity to drink something even healthier, which is that cup of green tea, not a truckload, just a cup.
It's very disheartening to see the television ads when people have something. There will be a pill or something liquid that they can take, but then there's always this disclaimer on the bottom, like they're going to get the shakes, they're going to die, they're going to, get diabetes. I mean, it's just ridiculous to me that even these pills can be on the market.
Well, but that's the wonderful thing about using foods to try to treat these chronic diseases, because if they do have side effects, they're beneficial side effects. So, for example, I write one of my daily dozen foods of things that I encourage everyone to include in their optimum daily diet is flax seeds. I encourage people to eat a tablespoon of ground flax seeds a day. And we have these randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trials showing that the consumption of just a few spoonfuls of ground flax seeds a day can bring blood pressures down 2 to 3 times better than our leading high blood pressure medications that I've been prescribing for most of my medical career. And the flax seeds only have good side effects. They reduce the risk of breast cancer and prostate cancer, help control cholesterol, triglycerides, blood sugars, reduce inflammation, cure constipation. And so, yeah, they have side effects, but they're good side effects as opposed to pharmaceuticals, which can have benefits but have risks that go along with them.
All right, so one thing I wanted you to address is the idea of reversing a condition. Diabetes comes to mind. We've spoken to people who say they've reversed diabetes by getting into a walking regimen. You reference a person, an engineer, I think you said he was, and his name is Nathan Pritikin in the book.
Yeah.
Who decided to eat the African diet or something like that to reverse. Not to reverse it, but to prevent heart disease. It turned out it reversed it. Correct?
Yeah, so Nathan Pritikin was an early lifestyle medicine pioneer who started reversing heart disease in the 1970s. And basically and that's because he himself was diagnosed at an early age in his 40s with severe heart disease, didn't want to die. He was a man of science. He was like, all right, let me look around the world and see if there's populations that don't suffer from epidemics of heart disease. And so he looked to sub-Saharan Africa, where in these populations of millions of people, they just did not suffer from coronary heart disease. In fact, many of our leading killers like breast cancer and obesity and type 2 diabetes. And so, look, he said, well, maybe I can slow down or stop the progression of my heart disease by eating the kind of diet that people eat that don't get heart disease in the first place, but instead something miraculous happened. Arteries opening up without drugs, without surgery, and this has now been confirmed in these randomized clinical trials. Dr. Dean Ornish in 1990 published in probably the most prestigious medical journal. You randomize people into these healthy plant-based diets. You can actually open up arteries. You can actually show angiographic proof like x-rays showing arteries opening up without these kind of without pills and procedures. Just with a healthy enough diet and other healthy lifestyle behaviors, we can reverse not only type 2 diabetes, not only heart disease, our number one killer of men and women, but also high blood pressure as well. These are some of our leading causes of death and disability.
So do we have an index in the book? I know you do have an index, but I mean, do we use the index as a way to cherry pick what we want? Do we say, oh my gosh, let me reverse my inflammation, and then we eat berries? I picked that one at random because it was in the book. I mean, how do we use the book? Or would we be foolish to do it that way and be smarter to just read the whole book?
Well, you can jump around, but so I have a chapter on each of the 15 leading causes of death. So I just go through what are the 15 causes of death. All right, well, let's just go through and talk about the role diet can play in preventing, arresting, and even reversing 15 leading killers. And so it's based on per diet. But if you're interested in various foods, you're like, I really like apples. I wonder what there is about the science about apples. Then if you look in the index, then you can find that, hey, wait a second, apples are mentioned in all these various disease chapters, and you get a sense of just how healthy apples are, and you see exactly what they do in the body.
It's probably not surprising to you as a doctor that natural foods are healthier. But were there any surprises among the unnatural foods? And the reason I'm mentioning this is because chocolate comes up all the time. People will say chocolate is actually good for you. Clearly not a natural food. Mm-hmm. Are there any natural foods that are actually good for us? Unnatural foods?
Well, the cocoa solids in the actual cacao bean that makes chocolate is actually beneficial. The problem is the saturated cocoa butter, the saturated fat in the cocoa bean, and the sugar, obviously, that's added to chocolate. But you can kind of get the benefits without the risk of chocolate by adding cocoa powder to smoothies or oatmeal or whatever you want to make kind of chocolatey without the sugar and added fat.
You have a really nice illustration in the book about body mass index, the same body mass index for one person that looks like they have six-pack abs, and then that next person, the same body mass index, and he's got a very irregular kind of shape. That never occurred to me.
Yeah, so that's why. So just asking people how much they weigh doesn't necessarily tell you much, and so that's why body mass index was, wanted to standardize by height. But then kind of the next level is looking at circumference to height ratio, abdominal circumference. So basically you take a tape measure and you measure your waist circumference, kind of between the top of your hip bones and the bottom of your rib cage. You just kind of breathe out, let it all hang out, and measure that length. And that should ideally be less than half your height, because the most dangerous fat is not the pear-shaped fat, not the thighs and butt fat, but it's the abdominal fat. It's the visceral fat around your internal abdominal organs. That's the most dangerous kind of fat. So that's why kind of waist-to-height circumference can be a better predictor of the risks of excess body weight.
All right. Let me take a break. And for the listeners, I mentioned at the beginning that we have 3 books that we want to give away. Usually we give the books away at the end of the interview. Today I'm going to do it in the middle. In other words, right now. The reason for that is because we have 3 books, and this is going to take a little bit of time. So if you want one of the 3 books, the book is called How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. Call in right now, 622-9622. Let it ring. When we come back from the break, then you'll know we're done, and I'll let you know if we have our 3 takers or not. But if you want one, call right now, 622-9622. We'll take a break, take your calls during the break, and then be back in about 2 minutes with Dr. Greger. You're listening to The Source, WOCA Ocala.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. It'll be mostly cloudy Thursday with a high in the 60s to near 70. Cloudy Thursday night with some rain late, lows ranging from the mid-50s inland to the low 60s on the coast. Friday rather cloudy and becoming windy with periods of rain and a thunderstorm in the morning, and a brief shower or two in the afternoon, a high 72 to 76. Saturday mostly sunny, high 72 to 76. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Attention passengers for Flight 1370. The plane has been delayed at its departure point and will be at least 2 hours late. We apologize for any inconvenience.
Are you serious? It took us over an hour to get here, 2 hours going through security and getting our tickets, and now we have to wait another 2 hours.
Yeah, it's beautiful here, but we're inside this overcrowded airport all day because the plane is stuck in bad weather.
This is the last time we ever do this. When we get back, we're going to Ocala Aviation and getting our pilot's license.
Yeah, we've been talking about that long enough. It's about time we did it. Then we could just fly ourselves and never have to deal with this mess again. again.
Right. No long lines, no full body groping security, no baggage checks.
Not to mention never losing your luggage. Remind me again why we haven't done that?
Well, we're idiots.
Oh, right.
Attention all passengers for Flight 1370. It looks like the plane is going to be delayed a little bit longer. The airline has lost the pilot's luggage. Isn't it time you got your pilot's license? Call Ocala Aviation today. 352-861-7484. That's 352-861-7484. Hey, you've earned it. Call today.
All right, 10 minutes before 11 o'clock, the book went fast. We had our 3 takers right away, so we have given them all away, so please don't call to ask for them. But thank you, Doctor, for allowing us to have these so we could do that. I think you may have saved some lives. Doctor, thank you for waiting through the break. I think we all kind of know instinctively, is there anything... Okay, this past winter, for example. You know what comes out in winter? Summer sausage.
Yes.
Summer sausage is probably that's got to be one of the most processed meat, because I think the animal in that sausage probably died a year ago or more.
Yeah, unfortunately, so, the World Health Organization recently came out identifying processed meat as a Class 1 carcinogen, meaning that we now know beyond a shadow of a doubt that processed meats like the sausages do indeed cause cancer. So there's a few things that, if there were anything to cut out of our diet or to minimize in our diet, it would be processed meats as well as trans fats, these hydrogenated, vegetable shortenings, those kind of things. Those are probably the 2 worst foods in our diet.
So now you're also with the Humane Society. So let me ask you something about the what do you call the grain? What do they call the chickens that run around?
Free range.
Free range chicken. So the humane people say it's more humane for the chickens, which that seems like it makes sense, right? More humane for the pigs that are going to be slaughtered if they're out in the field instead of in a little pen, and that makes sense. But is there any benefit health-wise to eating either of those meats?
Well, there's benefits from a food safety standpoint. So when you take, tens of thousands of animals and cram them to kind of cramped, filthy football field-sized sheds to lie, beak to beak or snout to snout atop their own waste, it's kind of a breeding ground for disease, kind of a perfect storm environment. And so that's why you see more salmonella in eggs that are from hens that are confined in cages, that kind of thing. So, you give them a little breathing room, then they're less likely to get diseases that can be passed along to people.
But if you had your druthers, I hate that word, but I'm going to use it. Would you rather would you rather that we were just all vegetarians? Would that make more sense to you?
Well, I don't advocate for a vegetarian diet. I advocate for a evidence-based diet. But the best available balance of science suggests the more whole plant foods we can eat, the better, both to kind of reap their nutritional benefits and displace less healthy options. So it's more about just centering your diet around the healthiest foods.
The book is comprehensive for the listeners. The book is called How Not to Die. It is written by Dr. Michael Greger, and we'll find out in just a second how to get the book. I wanted you, if you could give the listeners some, like you sent us some tips in like a cheat sheet here. One of them says for high blood pressure, hibiscus tea. Is that?
Yeah, hibiscus tea is one of the healthiest things we can drink. So I encourage people to drink water, green tea, and an herbal tea called hibiscus. So, tested head-to-head against a leading blood pressure drug, 2 cups of hibiscus tea every morning was as effective as the drug, but without the side effects. Though they don't call it sour tea for nothing, you got to make sure to kind of rinse your mouth out with water after drinking it so the natural acids don't kind of hurt your enamel. But and the only caveat with green tea is probably if you eat the tea, like you use matcha, which is powdered green tea, or throw tea leaves into a smoothie or something, I would recommend sticking to Japanese tea, as high levels of lead have been found in tea imported from China.
Oh, really?
You talk about nuts, pistachio nuts, about sexual performance for men and women.
Oh, really?
Yeah, indeed, yeah. So pistachio nuts, so there's actually a study, these randomized controlled trials, where you take people, so in this case it was men, randomized to eat 2 handfuls of pistachio nuts a day, and within a few weeks they had significantly improved sexual performance, and that's what we think is because of the arginine in nuts, which helps with nitric oxide signaling, basically the same kind of Viagra type effects, and so it just improves blood flow to the pelvic area, and that can have benefits for sexual function in women as well.
So who reported the performance, the men or the women? Because I'm just because we don't ever lie.
Yeah, you guys.
Right. Well, no. You can actually do something called penile plasmography, where you actually measure the firmness using laboratory equipment, so you don't have to rely on men's reporting. On
Really?
what you did.
What's a good number? I want to. All right.
You talk about kidneys and the protein necessary for that.
So there's benefits to plant sources of protein over animal sources for kidney function. For people with chronic kidney disease, the animal protein sources induce something called hyperfiltration. It actually puts increased pressure on the kidneys, whereas if you eat the same meal, instead of having tuna fish or something, you had the same amount of protein from plant sources such as beans, then the kidneys, you don't get that increased pressure in the kidneys. And so in general, and that's why they actually use plant-based diets to actually treat people with advanced kidney disease. But what's important to realize here is that it's not like there's one heart-healthy diet and then a different brain-healthy diet. A kidney-healthy diet is a liver-healthy diet, is a body-healthy diet. That's a diet surrounding really the healthiest foods like fruits and vegetables.
Can I ask you one that comes up a lot? I've always wondered what's true about this subject. Probiotics. What is the truth about that stuff?
So probiotics, we're realizing more and more the importance about the role of our friendly gut flora in our colon in terms of human health. But the answer is not to take these good bacteria, take capsules of good bacteria, the probiotics, but instead feed the good bacteria we already have with what are called prebiotics, and that is fiber and resistant starch. That's what our good bacteria eat, and where are they found? Predominantly in plant foods. So beans are a wonderful source, whole grains. We eat these foods, and some of these substances like fiber don't get digested, but they do get digested by our gut bacteria. We feed them, they feed us right back. We could take pills of good bacteria, but if we don't feed them, they'll just die off. So better to feed the good bacteria we already have by eating plant foods.
Never, ever have I heard that before. Okay, we gave away the 3 that were sent to us, and thank you for the 3 listeners who called in. Doctor, could you hear the winners that called in during the break? I
did,
Yeah,
yes.
good. Okay, so we have now, just to give out the information so people can buy the book, is this available as an ebook as well?
It's available as a digital download or audiobook or regular book in any bookstore near you.
Okay. And do you have a website?
Website is nutritionfacts.org, a free nonprofit science-based public service.
I actually had that earlier. Yes, nutritionfacts.org. The book is called How Not to Die, and go get your copy and live. Yeah, I'm sure you will eventually die, but I'm not sure of that. I mean, who knows? Who knows what life has around the corner for us all? Well, thank you for this is really, you know what? It rings true. Just listening to you talk about this, it just makes sense, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, so your mom was right all along. Eat your veggies.
What I think what might surprise us though is the stuff like flaxseed and hibiscus tea, things like that you didn't hear about your mother and your grandmother eating, right? Mm-hmm. Those kind of things.
Right. Yeah, there are particular foods that have benefits more than just So cruciferous vegetables and berries, all sorts of things that have these unique benefits, and we miss out on them if we don't include them in our daily diet.
So I'm going to go get some pistachios.
Yes. Gosh.
I'm going to get measured. I'm going to put it on my business card, my firmness number.
And we thank you, sir, for being such a strong advocate for animal welfare, too. You do a wonderful job with the Humane Society of America.
Very good.
Well, what's good for animals is good for us often.
I think so. I think you're right. Dr. Greger, thank you so much. Again, the book, How Not to Die, go to the website, nutritionfacts.org. We'll take a break and be right back.
This is James Snyder, inviting you to join me each Sunday morning at 9:30 for Sunday Joy.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. More Gitmo detainees transferred to the Middle East.
The Gulf nation of Oman confirmed the transfer of the 10 detainees, stating that they will be held for humanitarian reasons until they can go back to Yemen, their home country. The administration has not made the names public in an effort to avoid further controversy here at home and in the country receiving them, though a senior defense official with oversight of the detainees says the men are bad news with direct ties to the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, or both, and likely to return to the fight.
Fox's Catherine Herridge. The State Department says the U.S. expects to release the remainder of nearly 40 cleared prisoners by this summer. Oscar nominations are out, up for Best Picture.
The Big Short, Bridge of Spies, Brooklyn, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, Room, and Spotlight.
And